The vocal observation station floated silently in the deep dark of the caldera expanse, far from trade routes, border patrols, or anything remotely interesting. For 300 cycles the station had seen nothing but empty stars and the occasional lost transport cutting through unregulated space. Senior observer Zelvar had become so familiar with the routine that his limbs often moved before his mind fully caught up. His four manipulator arms worked across glowing holographic panels, checking energy readings, scanning local debris, and filing automated reports. His primary eyes watched the data feed, while his secondary eyes scanned the wide curve of the observation chamber around him. Everything was quiet. Everything was normal. Everything was exactly the same as it had been for decades. Then the alarm sounded. The sudden sharp tone cut through the stillness. Zelvar's body reacted instantly. His protective plates shifted from calm blue to a sharp alert yellow. He straightened, moving all four limbs to active positions as the holographic displays around him reshaped themselves to show incoming data. Something had entered the monitored zone. Something large. Something moving slowly, too slowly to be intentional. Pixton, Zelvar said, keeping his voice steady, run identification protocols. Now. The young assistant jolted at the order. His own plates flickered between green and yellow as he quickly pulled up the automated scans. Yes, senior observer. Beginning analysis. The first readings came through, and Zelvar narrowed his eyes. The object was definitely a ship. Definitely artificial. But the trajectory was strange, almost like it was drifting without control. The speed was sublight, uneven, dropping and stabilizing in irregular intervals. A damaged vessel, Zelvar thought. More data flowed in, and the truth became clearer. Hull breaches. Power instability. Failing containment fields. This ship was in terrible condition, nearly dead, limping through space like a wounded animal. Yet something felt wrong. Commander Thalrex, Zelvar called as he opened a direct comm channel to Sector Command. We have an unidentified vessel drifting through Grid 774. Configuration unknown. No response to standard hails. The commander appeared on the screen, her plates a calm green. Origin. Uncertain, Zelvar answered. Running comparative analysis now. Pixton brought the visual scans onto the main display. The image rotated slowly, showing the full structure of the ship. It looked nothing like vocal design. Nothing like council design. Nothing like any allied or enemy civilization in the sector. The vessel's hull was made of metal plates, dense, thick, lead-like armor. Heavy support beams showed through torn sections. Exposed weapon ports lined the sides, and the scorched marks around them suggested they had been fired recently. Many times. The construction appears crude, Zelvar said carefully, but powerful. Very powerful. This design philosophy does not match any known species in this region. Commander Thalrex leaned closer to her display. Estimate classification. If I were to guess, Zelvar said, I would classify it as a warship. Thalrex's plates shifted from green to a cautious yellow. Impossible. The minor species in this region cannot build warships capable of crossing this expanse. Zelvar silently agreed. The civilizations near this sector were technologically weak. Some barely managed orbital flights. None of them had the capacity to construct something so heavily armored, so brutally engineered. Pixton hesitated before speaking. Senior observer, the damage patterns on the hull, they indicate the vessel has taken several high-energy strikes. Yet it is still intact. Zelvar crossed two limbs over his chest, a gesture of deep thought. Strange. Very strange. More data appeared. Internal scans, filtered, fragmented by interference, showed scattered pockets of remaining power. Emergency lights flickering. Sections open to vacuum. Entire decks crushed or melted by impacts that any normal vessel would never survive. But this ship had survived. A chill ran through Zelvar. Permission to conduct a full-spectrum analysis, he asked the commander. Granted, Thalrex replied. Her plates dimmed toward orange, a sign of rising concern. Be cautious, Zelvar. If this is a warship from an unknown power, we must know if it threatens hegemony space. The connection closed. Zelvar turned all his focus to the task. He activated the station's primary scanning array. Thin beams of energy swept across multiple spectrums. Thermal, radiation, electromagnetic, molecular, kinetic. The results streamed back in layers, forming a growing picture of the mysterious ship. The more Zelvar saw, the more uneasy he felt. The armor was thick enough to withstand weapons fire that should have vaporized smaller vessels. The internal structure was redundant and heavily reinforced. The weapons, though simple in design, were capable of tremendous destructive power. But why would any species build like this? Why so much metal? Why such brute force? Why did this crude design work so well? His plates slowly shifted toward a dark orange. He felt something he rarely experienced, uncertainty. Pixton broke the silence. Senior Observer, are you seeing this? Zelvar turned to the new readings. Life signs. Zelvar blinked, checking the data twice. Then 3 times. Impossible, he whispered. The scans detected dozens, no, hundreds, of biological beings still alive inside the damaged ship. The conditions inside should have killed them all. Hard vacuum. Radiation spikes. Heat surges. Collapsing corridors. Failing gravity. Yet they were alive. And they were moving. Zelvar felt a deep, cold realization forming. This vessel was not simply a drifting wreck. It was not a lost relic. It was not abandoned. Whatever species built this ship, whatever beings were inside it, they were something the galaxy had never seen before. And Zelvar knew, deep in his instincts, that this discovery would change everything. Something about the vessel felt wrong. And something about it felt very, very important. The first shock had barely faded when the second one arrived. The station scanners continued feeding streams of information, each new layer more unbelievable than the last. Zelvar stood still, all 4 limbs tense, his eyes focused on the holographic display as the strange vessel's systems slowly revealed themselves. Power readings came first. Pixton's voice shook as he read them. Senior Observer, these numbers can't be right. The young assistant enlarged the power signature graph. It rose like a mountain, far above what any ship of this size should be able to generate. This vessel is too small, Pixton continued. It should not have this level of energy output. Zelvar leaned closer. The readings were clear, brute force energy generation, massive capacity, unstable but overwhelming. It wasn't elegant like vocal fusion matrices. It wasn't efficient like hegemony graviton reactors. It was raw power, forced into the ship through sheer engineering strength. Primitive. Inefficient. And terrifyingly effective. Run verification twice, Zelvar said. I do not want errors on something this unusual. Pixton ran the scans again. And again. Each time, the readings held. Zelvar's plates shifted from orange to a deep alert red. Impossible, he murmured. How can a vessel with such crude design support this level of power? He brought up the weapons analysis next. What he saw made him freeze. Rail-based kinetic accelerators lined the hull, thick tubes designed to fire solid metal slugs at speeds approaching a significant fraction of light. The impact energy alone would be enough to tear mid-class cruisers apart. Missile tubes were positioned along the belly of the ship, the warheads inside powerful enough to shatter small moons. Every scan confirmed it. These weapons weren't refined. They weren't subtle. They weren't graceful. But they were devastating. Pixton whispered, Senior Observer, this ship's armament is almost equal to a hegemony battleship. Zelvar swallowed, feeling the tension in his respiratory sac tighten. Yes. But the design is almost barbaric. No energy dispersion systems. No elegance. Just overwhelming force. The armor composition appeared next, dense metals welded together in thick layers. Iron, tungsten, carbon structures, nothing unusual individually, but the combination and thickness were absurd. It is the technological equivalent of a metal hammer, Zelvar said softly. Not a precision blade. And yet, it works. Hull scarring patterns showed long, deep burns, marks left by high-energy weapons fire. Weapons strong enough to vaporize smaller ships. But this vessel had survived hit after hit. Zelvar felt something strange. A creeping sense of respect. Whoever built this ship, he said quietly, understands durability better than any species we have encountered. Pixton paused, then checked another feed. Senior Observer, biological scan update. Zelvar turned sharply. Pixton hesitated. 143 life signs confirmed. Zelvar's plates went pale white, a sign of shock. That is impossible. The radiation levels are lethal. There is open vacuum in multiple corridors. I know, Pixton replied. His voice shook. And yet, they are alive. Not only alive, moving, working, repairing the ship. Zelvar stared in disbelief. Inside those conditions. Yes. And there's more. Pixton opened the gravitational analysis. The internal gravity level read 10 meters per square second, nearly twice the standard for most known species in the galaxy. Zelvar stepped back. A high-gravity species. High gravity meant strength. Endurance. Bone structure like reinforced steel. Muscles capable of lifting twice their mass easily. A species like that would be physically powerful, far more powerful than the Vorkal. Zelvar's unease deepened. Cross-reference biological signatures with known species. Pixton worked fast, highlighting dozens of points on the holo display. Data scrolled down in bright symbols as the system checked every known database entry. Council species, independent species, outlaw groups, extinct civilizations from the old wars. After several seconds, Pixton stopped. No match, he said quietly. None at all. Zelvar felt an icy chill. So this is first contact. Yes, senior observer. But this wasn't like first contact with primitive species, those who barely reached orbit. This was a species that built powerful warships, traveled far into space, and used technology that was strange, crude, and terrifyingly strong. Zelvar forced himself to focus. Initiate first contact procedures. Broadcast greetings. Mathematical sequences. Visual patterns. All standard channels. Pixton nodded and sent the transmissions. As he worked, Zelvar continued analyzing the drifting vessel. He looked at their databanks next. The encryption was primitive, binary, not quantum, but the volume of data was massive. These beings use simple computing, he muttered. But their data storage is enormous. Strange, very strange. Then he checked their propulsion systems. His plates shifted again. That is, spacefall technology, he whispered. Pixton blinked. But that is only theoretical. Our scientists say it is too energy demanding to be practical. Yes, Zelvar said, which makes this even more concerning. The unknown species had forced a theoretical engine to function through brute power alone. They didn't bend space elegantly like advanced species did, they pushed it open with raw force. Zelvar had no words. Senior observer, Pixton interrupted nervously, there is still no response to our hails. Zelvar frowned. They may not recognize our signals. Continue broadcasting. Then he stopped as a new alarm sounded. Energy spikes. Multiple. From inside the unknown vessel. Zelvar scanned the readings. Power is shifting. They are rerouting systems. Pixton gasped. That pattern, senior observer, they are charging their weapons. Zelvar froze for a heartbeat. Then. Raise defensive shields immediately, he ordered. And broadcast on every frequency that we are not hostile. Pixton scrambled to obey. The young assistant looked back at Zelvar, voice trembling. But senior observer, they are heavily damaged, outnumbered, and surrounded. Why would they prepare for combat? Zelvar stared at the ship's silhouette on the screen. The drifting, wounded vessel with survivors who should have died long ago. He felt fear, deep, instinctual fear. Because, Zelvar whispered, their logic is not our logic. He watched the power readings climb. And I believe we are about to learn what this species does when it feels cornered. The alien boarding team moved carefully through the dark corridor, their boots making small metallic clicks that echoed far too loudly in the silent ship. The emergency lights still blinked weakly, casting long shadows that made every broken panel look like a lurking creature. Sergeant Kelvak kept his weapon pointed forward. He did not like this place. The air smelled strange, like heat, metal, and something else he could not name. The closer they walked toward the inner decks, the more he felt a pressure in his chest. It was not fear, he told himself. It was awareness. Something dangerous had lived here. Team 2, he whispered into his comm, status. Clear so far, replied a shaky voice. No life signs. Just damage. Kelvak did not say what he felt. The ship did not feel dead. It felt sleeping. Behind him, Technician Arila scanned the walls with a small light. She tried to keep her voice steady, but Kelvak could hear the tension in her breath. These hull plates, they are melted from the inside, she said softly. Some kind of explosion maybe, but no burn patterns. No residue. So what caused it? Kelvak asked. I don't know, she answered. The team continued forward until they reached a door half jammed open. A large crack ran through it, as if something inside had kicked it with impossible strength. Kelvak signaled 2 soldiers to pull the door apart. It groaned loudly as the metal bent. As the doorway opened, the team froze. Inside was a chamber filled with burnt seats and twisted consoles, but at the center lay a massive armored structure. Arila walked closer, scanning it. Her hands trembled a little. "It's some kind of battle pod," she murmured. "But look at the armor thickness. And these plates, this is insane. It's almost like it was made to survive a star." Kelvak circled around it. Something about the pod felt wrong. It was too strong, too heavy. No civilization used this much armor unless they expected extreme violence. "Check if it held a pilot," Kelvak said. Arila climbed onto the side, shining her light through a cracked visor. The moment she looked inside, she gasped. "K. Kelvak." He stepped forward. "What is it?" Her voice shook. It held something big. Larger than a Vorkal. And, she swallowed. It broke out from the inside. Kelvak's stomach tightened. "No," he said softly. "You mean, it escaped?" Arila nodded. The entire team took a slow step backward. The claw marks inside the armor were deep, far too deep. Whatever creature had been inside possessed strength far beyond any known species. Before Kelvak could say anything else, static crackled in his comm. "Boarding team, respond," came Commander Thaurex's voice. "We are detecting energy fluctuations inside the vessel." Kelvak tapped the comm. "We copy, Commander. We found a containment pod. Something was inside it. Something strong." There was a long silence on the line. "Return to extraction point immediately," Thaurex said. Kelvak wanted to follow the order, but another console suddenly lit up on the wall beside him. A dim screen flickered, showing symbols and diagrams none of them understood. Then a distorted voice played from the speakers, deep, painful, almost broken. Arila backed away quickly. "What was that?" she whispered. Kelvak shook his head. "Could be an audio log." The voice played again, slow, dragged, but filled with a kind of determination that felt human. Kelvak couldn't understand the words, but the tone felt like someone giving a final command. Or a final warning. Arila's scanner beeped rapidly. "Oh no," she breathed. "Kelvak. I'm detecting biological residue. Fresh." Kelvak stiffened. "Fresh? How fresh?" "Less than an hour." The silence in the chamber grew heavy. Too heavy. Something was on the ship. Something alive. Something that broke out of an armored pod and survived whatever destroyed this vessel. One of the soldiers took a step back. "Sergeant, should we leave?" Kelvak was about to answer when a loud metallic crash echoed somewhere deep inside the ship. It was not the sound of machinery falling. It was deliberate, like a heavy footstep. Another crash followed. Then another. Slow, steady, approaching. Arila's face turned pale. "It's coming toward us." Kelvak steadied his weapon, hands tightening around the grip. His instincts screamed to retreat, but something inside him needed to see what they were dealing with. The footsteps stopped. Then a low breath echoed through the corridors, deep, controlled, powerful. A silhouette appeared at the far end of the hallway. Large. Broad. Humanoid. Kelvak's heart pounded. "That's impossible," he whispered. The figure moved into the faint emergency light. It was tall. Armored. Bleeding. And unmistakably human. Not weak. Not primitive. Still alive. Kelvak's throat went dry. "That thing," one soldier whispered. "It survived all this." The human tilted its head, as if observing them. Then its body tensed, like a predator preparing to strike. Kelvak took a step back, raising his weapon. "Fall back," he breathed. "Now." But the human moved first. Fast. Much faster than anything they had ever seen. And the Vorkal team realized, far too late, that they were not exploring a dead ship. They had walked straight into the path of a survivor. A human survivor. The corridor exploded with motion. Kelvak barely had time to yell before the human charged forward like a thunderbolt. The alien soldiers fired instantly, bright bolts flashing across the dark corridor, but the human moved too fast. It slid behind a broken support beam, the shots burning uselessly into the metal. "Hold fire!" Kelvak shouted. "Regroup! Regroup!" But the team was already panicking. The human leaned out for only half a second, just long enough for everyone to feel the sharp, heavy presence of its gaze. Then it vanished into another corridor, leaving silence behind. Arila's breathing was uneven. "Sergeant, it's wounded. My scanner shows major blood loss." Kelvak shook his head. "If that is how it fights while injured, I don't want to see it healthy." A soldier whispered, "Why didn't it kill us already?" No one answered. Kelvak motioned for them to move back. We retreat to the entry point. Slow and quiet. Keep your weapons up. The team stepped carefully, eyes scanning every corner. The entire ship felt alive now, creaking metal, distant knocks, strange mechanical groans. It was impossible to tell which noises belonged to the wounded ship and which came from the wounded human stalking them. Arilla kept looking behind her. It's watching. I can feel it. Kelvak felt the same. The air itself had changed, heavy, tense, charged with something primal. The human was close. Too close. A crash vibrated through the walls ahead of them. Then, silence. Kelvak raised a hand, signaling the team to stop. He motioned for Arilla to check her scanner. Her screen flickered. There's movement, but it's fast. It keeps shifting positions, left corridor, then right, then above us. Kelvak frowned. Above? He glanced up. The ceiling panels were dented, as if something had climbed across them. Arilla's voice dropped to a whisper. Sergeant. I think it's hunting us. Kelvak swallowed hard but kept his voice firm. We keep moving. The team continued toward the extraction corridor, but they had barely taken 5 steps when something heavy landed behind them with a metallic thud. Everyone spun around. Nothing. Just darkness. Kelvak scanned the shadows, pulse hammering. Another thud, this time on the left side. A soldier panicked and fired blindly into the darkness, light filling the corridor for an instant. Kelvak grabbed his arm. Stop. You'll hit. Before he could finish, something grabbed the soldier from behind and yanked him into a side passage. His scream was cut off instantly. The remaining soldiers froze. One whispered, "What was that?" Arilla's shaking voice came through. It was the human. It took him. With one hand. Kelvak felt cold spread through his chest. Keep moving, he said. Do not stop. Do not fall behind. They pressed forward, weapons aimed everywhere at once. Every few steps, the human's presence shifted, behind them, above them, ahead of them. Kelvak understood the terrifying truth. It wasn't attacking randomly. It was testing them. Studying them. The ship lights flickered again, and a faint hum rose from below their feet. The ship was coming alive, reacting to the human's movements, trying to support its last surviving crew member. Arilla gasped as a new signal flashed on her scanner. Sergeant, we have a problem. Energy buildup near the core. Kelvak didn't like that. Meaning? The ship is unstable. If the power coils collapse, this whole vessel might explode. Kelvak exhaled slowly. Perfect. They finally reached the central walkway leading back toward the extraction point. One more turn and they'd be safe. Or so they thought. As they approached the final corridor, a heavy blast door suddenly slammed down in front of them with a deafening crash. Arilla's fingers flew over the control panel. It's locked. No, it's overridden from inside. Someone closed it on purpose. Kelvak stared at her. The human? Arilla nodded, terrified. The team turned, and saw the human standing at the far end of the hallway. Not charging. Not hiding. Just standing there, towering, battered, bleeding. Its chest rose and fell slowly, every breath sounding like distant thunder. Kelvak raised his weapon but did not fire. He looked closely. The human was shaking. Not from fear, but from exhaustion. Its left arm hung limp. Its armor was cracked. It could barely stand. Yet its eyes, cold, sharp, alive, locked on Kelvak with absolute focus. Arilla whispered, "It's protecting this ship. It doesn't want us to go deeper." Kelvak felt a strange chill. It thinks we're attackers. The human took one step forward. A deliberate warning. Kelvak looked around. No other exits. No way past the creature. And the ship's core threatening to overload behind them. "We can't fight that thing," one soldier whispered. "Not in this condition." Kelvak knew he was right. "Commander Thalrex," he said into his comm, trying to stay calm, "the human is blocking our exit. We need extraction, immediately." Static. Then Thalrex's voice came through, tense. "Understood. We're cutting through the outer hull to reach your position. Hold your ground." Hold their ground. Against this creature. Kelvak raised a hand, signaling the team to form a defensive line. The human watched every movement, its breathing harsh, its body tense like a coiled spring. For a long moment, the two sides stared at each other across the broken corridor, neither wanting to make the first move. Then, from deep inside the ship, an alarm screamed. A warning tone. Arilla checked her scanner. "Oh no," she breathed. The overload has started. 6 minutes. The human's eyes flicked toward the sound, then back to Kelvak. It understood the danger. It understood everything. And in that moment, something changed in its expression. It wasn't hatred. It wasn't rage. It was resolve. The human stepped toward them. Not to attack. But with purpose. As if it was making a decision that would change everything. The human stepped forward with slow, heavy steps. Every movement sent a fresh trail of blood dripping onto the metal floor. Kelvak lifted his weapon automatically, but something inside him froze when the human raised one hand, not to strike, but to signal. A warning? A message? A plea? Kelvak couldn't tell. The human pointed toward the corridor behind it, the one leading deeper into the ship, toward the unstable core, and shook its head. Then it pointed toward Kelvak and his team and motioned them backward. Arila blinked. Sergeant, it wants us to leave. Kelvak was stunned. Why? A crack echoed through the ship, deep, distant, violent. The deck plates trembled under their feet. Arila's scanner flashed red warnings. The overload is accelerating. 5 minutes left. Kelvak understood instantly. The human wasn't trying to trap them. It had closed the blast door to keep them away from the danger. It was trying to protect them. But why would a human, an unknown species, save its enemies? Before Kelvak could process it, the human suddenly staggered. Its knees buckled. It caught itself on the wall, breathing heavily. Pain was written across its face, but still, it forced itself to stand tall again. Kelvak felt a strange knot form in his chest. This creature was beyond injured. It should have collapsed long ago. Yet here it was, standing, thinking, protecting. Arila whispered, "It's dying." Kelvak nodded slowly. And still trying to complete its mission. A burst of static hit Kelvak's comm. "Sergeant, we're cutting through the hull now." Commander Thalrek said. 2 minutes until extraction corridor is ready. Kelvak glanced at the human, who stared back with those sharp, burning eyes. There was intelligence there. Understanding. Even, acceptance. The human looked down at a small panel near the wall, one Kelvak hadn't noticed. With slow fingers, the human tapped a sequence of buttons. Lights flickered weakly above them. Arila scanned it quickly. Her eyes widened. It just rerouted the emergency power. It's giving us a safer path to the extraction breach. Kelvak stared at the human. Why? Why help us? The human didn't respond with words. It pressed a hand against its chest, then pointed to the symbol on the wall behind it, a broken insignia. A circle divided by 3 lines. Arila whispered, maybe it's saying this ship is its duty. Its responsibility. The human nodded once, slowly. Kelvak said quietly, and letting us die here is not part of its mission. Another shudder ripped through the ship. This one was stronger. Pipes burst overhead. Sparks rained down. 4 minutes left. The human looked toward the deeper corridor as if hearing something the aliens couldn't. Its expression hardened, determined. Without warning, it turned and limped toward the dangerous corridor, the one leading to the core. Kelvak stepped forward. Wait, what are you doing? The human stopped for only a moment. It looked back over its shoulder, eyes steady, and raised a hand in a motion Kelvak somehow understood. Leave. Now. Then it continued walking. Arila gasped softly. It's going to the core, it's trying to stop the overload. Kelvak felt a heavy pressure in his chest. Could a single wounded human stop a collapsing star core engine? Impossible. No being had that strength. But humans were not like other beings. Sergeant, came the commander's voice. Extraction breach open. Move, now. Kelvak hesitated for the first time in his career. Every instinct screamed to run. But he couldn't stop watching the human's retreating figure, each step a study in pain and stubbornness. Another explosion burst through the hallway behind them. Kelvak finally tore his eyes away. Everyone move. Now. The team ran through the corridor the human had unlocked for them. Emergency lights flickered to life, only the ones that helped them escape. No others. Every light was positioned with purpose. Every open door was arranged like a path. The human had planned their escape. As the team reached the breach, the hull glowed from cutting lasers. The moment they stepped inside, mechanical arms pulled them to safety. Arila looked back through the breach. Sergeant, it's still inside. Kelvak turned. Through the smoke and sparks, he saw the human disappear around a corner, heading straight toward the core. Then the breach door sealed shut. The extraction pod launched them away from the dying ship. Outside the viewport, the wrecked vessel drifted in space like a wounded beast. Commander Thalrex met them in the decontamination chamber. "Did you engage the hostile?" Kelvak shook his head slowly. "No, sir. It didn't attack us." Thalrex frowned. "Then what did it do?" Kelvak took a slow breath. "It saved us." Arila stepped forward. "Sir, that human stayed behind. It went to the core. It wanted us to live." Thalrex stared at them, confused. Why would an unknown species, clearly hostile, save our boarding team? Kelvak met his commander's eyes. "Because they are not hostile," he said softly. "They're something else." Thalrex crossed his arms. "And the human now?" Kelvak looked out the viewport again. The ship flickered with final, failing lights. "It stayed behind to stop the explosion," he whispered. "If it succeeds, that creature is stronger than anything we've ever known." "And if it fails?" the commander asked. Kelvak swallowed hard. "Then we just witnessed a dying human choosing to save its enemies rather than let them die." The pod trembled as the dying ship released a massive burst of energy. Arila gasped. "The core, something's happening." Kelvak watched closely. Something was happening indeed. Something impossible. The dying ship pulsed with violent, unstable light. Flames danced through shattered hull plates, and the entire vessel twisted under the pressure of the unstable core. Kelvak gripped the edge of the viewport as the first shockwave rippled across the debris field. Arila whispered, "It's starting, the core is collapsing." Commander Thalrex folded his arms tightly, eyes locked on the drifting ship. "Distance." "Safe," the pilot answered. "But if the core fully explodes, even safe might not be enough." Kelvak barely heard them. His mind remained on the last moments he saw the human, limping, bleeding, but refusing to fall. No creature they had ever encountered showed such insane determination. Arila stared, wide-eyed. What if it didn't make it in time? Kelvak shook his head slowly. It knew the risk. It went anyway. Another violent tremor shook the ship's remains. A plume of fire erupted from the midsection. The human was somewhere in there. Fighting. Bleeding. Trying to stop a catastrophe. For creatures the Vorkal barely understood. Thalrex exhaled sharply. "We will record this. Whatever happens next, the Council must know what we found." No sooner had he spoken than an enormous burst of light flared from the wrecked vessel. A roaring beam of blue energy blasted outward, spreading like a wave across the void. "Brace!" the pilot shouted. The shockwave slammed into the extraction pod. The lights flickered wildly. Kelvak gripped the seat straps as the entire pod spun. For 5 long seconds, space itself seemed to burn. Then, silence. The pod stabilized. Kelvak blinked several times. "Report." Arila scanned her panel with shaking hands. "We're stable, somehow. But the energy signature, it's not a full explosion. It was a controlled discharge." Thalrex narrowed his eyes. "Controlled? By who?" Kelvak didn't answer. He already knew. The human had done it. Arila turned toward him slowly, voice trembling with disbelief. "Sergeant. I think it stopped the core." Kelvak stared at the drifting wreck. Most of it was gone, but the central hull still glowed weakly, alive, not shattered into dust. "That's impossible," Thalrex said. Yet it had happened. As the shockwave faded, the survivors stared out at the quiet ruins. No movement. No heat signatures. The ship had gone silent. Arila slowly stood. Her voice was soft. "Do you think it survived?" Kelvak exhaled through his nose. "If it did, it deserves more than survival." Thalrex activated the long-range scanners. "Anything?" A moment passed. "No life signs," the AI announced. Another moment. "No remaining power signatures." A third moment. "No human detected." The pod fell into a heavy silence. Arila covered her mouth. "So, it died saving us." Kelvak didn't move. His eyes stayed locked on the ship. Something twisted in his chest, a feeling he couldn't quite understand. Respect? Guilt? Awe? For the first time in his life, he felt small. "We misjudged them," he murmured. "Humans, they're not monsters. They're not primitive. They're something else, something dangerous, yes, but also." He searched for the word. Then found it. Honorable. Thalrex looked at him sharply. "You realize what this means for the Council?" Kelvak nodded. It means every species out there needs to know what humans are capable of. What a single wounded human can do. Arila added quietly, and what a human chooses to do, even when dying. The commander tapped the console. Prepare a full report. The council will demand proof. Kelvak lifted his head. I will testify myself. Arila nodded. Me too. The pod turned away from the wreck. Engines rumbled as they began the long return to vocal command. But Kelvak's gaze stayed fixed on the fading debris. He couldn't stop thinking about the way the human had stood, broken but unbowed. The way it had watched them, judged them, protected them. The way it had turned back toward the core with steady resolve, knowing what it meant. Why would a human treat strangers as worth saving? What logic drove them? What code did they follow? What strength allowed them to walk into death without slowing? As the stars stretched into long streaks and the ship slipped into warp, Kelvak made himself a promise. He would not let the council dismiss what he had seen. He would not allow them to call humans a threat to erase. Not after what that lone survivor had done. Weeks later, the council chamber echoed with voices, arguments, and disbelief. Kelvak stood before them, straight-backed, unflinching. He told them everything. The ship. The boarding. The human. The warnings. The sacrifice. Some counselors laughed in disbelief. Some trembled in fear. Some quietly took notes, whispering among themselves. When Kelvak finished, the chamber fell silent. A high counselor finally spoke. And your conclusion, Sergeant? Kelvak lifted his chin. My conclusion, honored council, is simple, he said. If this is what one dying human can achieve, then we must pray we never face a living human fleet. Silence again. Then another counselor asked softly, and what of the human who saved your lives? Kelvak closed his eyes for a moment. It died a warrior, he said. And deserves to be remembered as one. The echo of his words lingered. Far beyond council space, deep inside a drifting wreck of metal and ash, a faint spark of life flickered. A hand twitched. A steady breath followed. The human's eyes opened. Dark. Focused. Burning. Alive.